Welcome back to the Matt Return Podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Allen.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
And we're back from break finally. It's been a few weeks since we've recorded one of these. But a lot has happened, specifically Penn State just wrestled Oregon State. They're out of the break as well, getting ready for a Big Ten schedule up ahead. But just, Kaleb, I guess we'll start this off. Just what'd you think of the Oregon State dual meet?
Well, obviously Penn State came out with a huge win, but I think the biggest takeaway is probably Bernie Truex taking his first official loss this season. Of course, he had the All-Star Classic loss, but that didn't count towards his collegiate record.
I mean, we talked to assistant coach Cody Sanderson on Tuesday, so yesterday, and I asked him, like, well, what do you think he could improve on? And he didn't really say anything. It was more like he has to just shoot more. I know their whole thing is score points, score points, score points. We've heard it so many times. But I don't know if Bernie has really done that so far. And Cody basically said, I'll paraphrase this here, but he was like, when he does go to shoot a shot, he almost always gets it. It's just kind of getting them comfortable enough to shoot a shot maybe against these top 10 ranked opponents compared to maybe some of the lower ranked guys. And I think I don't really think like he's in trouble at all. He's going to fall in the rankings obviously a little bit, but I still think he's one of the top wrestlers at that weight class, and we'll probably have a good run in March too. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to be concerned about. I mean, this is the sixth time he's faced Munoz. The first 4 times he took a win, so it's not like this isn't a guy he can't beat. We've seen that before with last year Mason Paris was like that with Greg. It's just I don't think there's not a huge amount to worry about right now. I don't think with him.
Yeah, and it's also like he just transferred in the offseason. Maybe sometimes it takes a little bit too. I don't know. It's been a few months since then.
And he's coming back down a weight as well. Back to his like true weight. So
yeah, I'm sure the weight cut has been a little bit unusual for him. But I think beyond just him, really, I think maybe the only other takeaway was how Penn State's true freshman wrestled. Braden Davis at 125 pounds and Tyler Kasek at 149 pounds both delivered upsets. They were both unranked and both took down top 15 wrestlers, which really, after I think especially Tyler's win, I was like, is this going to be a shutout against Oregon State? Obviously, that didn't end up happening. But I still think, with Braden performing how he is, with their need at 125 pounds the last couple years, combined with Tyler's win at a weight class now they need to fill after Shane Van Ness's injury, it was just really hopeful for Penn State, even more so than just their regular lineup, which is already stacked as it is.
Well, the way I see it, Braden, I don't see any way they're not going to burn his red shirt. You have a guy who looks like he can go out an All-American for you. I think it's more interesting with Tyler at 149 because you have a guy who's a true freshman. You have your star wrestler at that weight. He's out for the entire year. It's going to make next year really interesting where they're going to fill up all those spots in the lineup because the middle few weights are all locked down. Like I don't know where Tyler's going to fit in that equation, but he's the one that if they were going to still redshirt, I would imagine they'll do. But assuming they don't, you still have a chance to qualify 10 for NCAAs, even with the injuries and the question marks at 125 all year. I think it's a very real possibility still.
Yeah, and I mean, even if he does redshirt, he's still a very versatile piece if, the worst case scenario happens for another wrestler. I know after the Oregon State dual meet, I think he said in an interview, like, he would be interested in 157 pounds or something like that. He just mentioned that weight class. On top of that, he started this season at 141 pounds before, moving up to fill in Shane's spot. I think, he could provide in a lot of areas if they need to, but I do think it's a good point that you bring up. Like Shane's Shane's not done for his career. He's going to be back, and if you're looking for the future for his career, it could make sense to redshirt. But I agree with you on Braden. Kale will put out the best wrestler he can in most circumstances. And I think up to this point, at the lightest class, it's been Braden so far. I just don't see how they can really cycle him out at all.
No, because if you're going out there and Braden's not starting at that point, you're usually just giving the other team 3 points in terms of duels. So, that's not a knock against the other two, Steen or Robbie, but they've both been pretty shaky this year.
And I guess kind of moving toward Indiana, really the Oregon State duel kind of started the season. I know we weren't back on campus yet, but now it's go time now. January is when really the wrestling season picks up, and they'll be back in Rec Hall finally after wrestling in Oregon on Sunday against Indiana, who has a few ranked wrestlers. I guess so far before the match on Sunday, what do you kind of see from the Hoosiers?
You even mentioned before the match, Carter and Washington, they got into that altercation last year. That's definitely something to look forward to. Other than that, this should be a fairly one-sided victory. Even the ranked guys they have, most of them are going to get tossed around, I'd imagine, by Penn State.
Yeah, it's the same story as it usually is. If we're looking back at Oregon State was, I think, number 16, and it looked like for a while, if they didn't get that upset over Bernie, it was going to be a shutout. And so, it's like you said, I think really the thing to watch is Carter Starace versus Donnell Washington. I don't think it's going to get to the point like it did last season. I think especially the coaches are going to be hyper aware, but I still think it's going to be, really aggressive wrestling from two guys that, aren't the fondest of each other. But I think also another interesting thing, going back to Tyler Kasak, he's really been one of the big storylines after that Oregon State dual meet. He's got, if Penn State elects to wrestle him against Indiana, Indiana has a number 14 guy, Graham Brooks, in their lineup, which would be back-to-back. I think the guy he beat, Nash Singleton, was like number 15 or something like that. So it's basically the same thing, just in front of Rec Hall now. I think that match, if Tyler were to win, I think that would be really telling about his redshirt situation. Because, I don't know, I just feel like Kale, he coaches for March. Like, he coaches for a championship. And even though Penn State is by far probably the favorites right now, I still think he might just put his best guy out there.
Well, even if they decided to burn his red shirt this year, they could always bump him back down to 141. And I think Bo only has this year and next year in eligibility, I believe. So if they really wanted to, they could bump him down and then redshirt him, and then, all of a sudden that's your guy at 141.
Yeah.
But there's definitely somebody's going to be an odd man out otherwise.
I feel like this has happened a few times. Like last year with Michael Beard transferring because of Max Dean, he ends up being like a top 10 wrestler. It's like the rich get richer with this team every year, especially with Shane making, presumably the jump he did in the offseason. I think his only 3 matches this year, he didn't get out of the first round. He pinned every opponent in the first round. And it's just, then you bring in the 3 transfers, and it just, you get this lineup where it's like, it's not even a question if they're going to win or lose. It's by how much they're going to win by. And it's really crazy to see.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have when you're talking, should we start him or should we start him? And they're guys at certain weights are both beating ranked wrestlers. It's a good problem to have.
Looking at the lineup, is there a scenario? This could be maybe a dual meet where we see, some guys get rested and they let some of the other guys get action early in the season before, the competition really ramps up and before they're trying to get guys, ready for March. But is there, I just don't think there's really a chance Indiana wins this at all.
They might only win one weight, assuming full starters go, and that would be Kasich. And even then, based off of last week, I mean that's not guaranteed.
No, it's not a given. It's not a given at all. So needless to say, I'm predicting Penn State to win at Rec Hall, but that'll be the last home match for almost a month after that. I mean,
yeah, then they go on the road and face both Michigan schools
and Maryland, and then they come back for Ohio State in February. So it's very much a road schedule, and I think that Oregon State match also prepared them for that aspect because it's not going to get farther than that. So it's an exciting time for Penn State wrestling. The wrestling season's back in full swing. No more of these out-of-conference dual meets until the very end. But there's not going to be a lot of waiting between action. But yeah, that's all from us. Again, I'm Zach Allen.
And I'm Kaleb Boyer.
You can follow our articles and coverage on our Daily Collegian Wrestling Twitter/X account at TDC_wrestling. And you can follow us both personally as well. And we'll see you next week.